Democratic strategist Joe Rubin. Joe, I do want to go ahead and start with you. We know that House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, he's planning to meet with committee ranking members. It's to discuss the president's candidacy. Now, this is all happening after a number of Democrats, House Democrats, they've called for President Biden to step down. Do you think that the president should really get out of the race?
But Kelsey, it's great to be with you and with Lindsay. No, I don't think the president should get out of the race. Not at all. Many House members are supporting the president staying in. There's a real circular firing squad going on right now in the Democratic Party, which is difficult to watch. But this is what we do as Democrats. We oftentimes like to factionalize and fight it out. But this president is strong. He has a deep track record, 3.5 years of strong success. He has a strong campaign. And let's not forget, campaigns have highs and lows. Campaigns are not linear. And the president's polling recently shows that the fundamentals of the race did not change from the debate, a week ago. This is a situation where he has to ride it out. He has to engage. He has to talk to the people who are concerned. But that does not mean that he immediately steps aside and somehow we miraculously find a new perfect candidate 4 months to go before a general election that up until this point has not materialized. The president's our candidate, and he just needs to stand firm right now.
All right, Lindsay, I do want to go ahead and get to you. We know that Biden, he's campaigning in Pennsylvania. This, of course, is a state where this gap is widening. He's leading. Trump is leading the polls by now 3.2%. And we know that Biden is attending a church service in Philadelphia. He's then headed to Harrisburg. How important is this swing state to the Biden campaign?
Well, we know that Pennsylvania is extremely important. I mean, the Keystone State is somewhere where Biden was actually raised and grew up. And if you can't win your home state, we know how we looked at Nikki Haley in that instance. And so I just think it's really important that Biden sends a strong message. But this is a watershed moment for his campaign, but not only Biden's campaign, all Democrats, because I think everyone is looking at this like, how do you come up from here? Because even though I agree it's not a wise strategy to just abort mission 4 months out from Election Day, I do think that it's important to listen to donors and voters that are really saying this doesn't look like a great solution and way forward. And effective communication and effective communicator are part of the key jobs of being president. We understand that a president has cabinet members and leaders that can direct you in areas like foreign policy and finance, but communicating, looking strong, having being like fully mentally aware and cognizant and looking powerful are some things that you need to present not only on a national stage, but internationally to let everyone know that you're a sound in mind and body to move forward for another 4 years. Because if Kamala is the other option, we know her approval ratings are below 40%, and that's also problematic for voters.
You know, Joe, let's go ahead and talk about Kamala a little bit more. The Vice President, Kamala Harris, she's really kept her comments focused on motivating the voters, and many are really eyeing Harris as a possible replacement for Biden if he does step aside. Now, if we look at the recent polling, it shows that Harris is trailing behind Biden by just about 2%. What would a Harris presidency look like?
Well, Kamala Harris is a star and a strength to this president and to this country. And I think that she brings assets and skills that are valued by the president, by his team, not just as a candidate, but as a leader of our government. She has been the strongest voice in the administration for standing up for women's rights, for countering the narrative that Donald Trump has put out there that somehow women should not be allowed to make decisions about their own bodies. And to the discussion as we're talking about this in terms of leadership, next week we're going to see President Biden convening the NATO summit in Washington, 37 leaders from around the world. This is something that he rebuilt after the destructive presidency of Donald Trump. There's no better way to demonstrate leadership than to show it in facts. It's not just PR. It's not just sound bites or tweets like Donald Trump puts out there, but it's evidence. And Kamala Harris, she also has demonstrated that in 3.5 years. And I think they're a really strong team.
You know, Lindsay, let's get to you, because how important is it at this NATO summit that Biden is able to show his mental capability?
Well, that was his whole answer to George Stephanopoulos, is like, listen, every single day I have a cognitive test. So really, with that type of response to that serious of a question, you're going to have to prove it every single day that we see you publicly, starting with today in Pennsylvania, all day and all the events that we see, but then going all the way through next week and beyond that for the next 4 months to prove that not only in interviews when they're taped and you're sitting down with a friend can you communicate well, but in all settings, off the cuff, be spontaneous, be that person that people might have voted for 4 years ago. I think with all that time in between, father time is unmatched. Age is something that we can't run away from. And so that's a real conversation that he has to have with himself, look internally to make sure that he's up for this job outside of his ego so that he can deliver on the promises that he's telling America.
I do want to ask you both about this. It's really important right now that President Biden is able to get the black vote in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia specifically. How is he going to go about doing this?
Well, I can start, being that I'm a black woman, I think that, he had 90% of black women voting for him in the last election, and that was throughout the country. And so I think it's important, and when you talk about some issues that Republicans are failing on, it is the women's rights agenda, and some of their commentary there has fallen on deaf ears for women that don't want to hear things like that. But then also, you have to make sure that you have Kamala out in other ways, that she looks like somebody that's relatable and connecting with the people. I think to put her out 2 months before Election Day or even in the last 6 months is way too late, when for the past 4 years people have been asking, where is Kamala? Where is Kamala? So I think he has to make sure to promote the black woman within his own party on a different level than he has in the past in order to make her look like a viable option if anything were to happen in the future as the president of this country.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, if I can also add to that, I think look, the president's values are so strong. He's popular amongst Black Americans, Black American voters. Look, when you look at labor and unemployment levels, they're the lowest amongst Black American households. We're talking about a president who cares, who listens, who shows up, as opposed to Donald Trump, who basically attacks Black Americans all the time, including making comments at the debate, which somehow are ignored. Black jobs. I mean, this is a real contrast in styles, personality, and values. And President Biden, he has been working very hard to ensure that all Americans are included in his presidency. And that's why I think he's an incredibly viable candidate in the fall.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see what's going to happen in the next couple of days. Lindsay and Joel, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.